Hello, Commanders! Hello. Welcome to the latest installment of the ArenaNet Studio Tour Update. Your go-to resource for Guild Wars 2 development news. Today we'll address some community questions regarding our announcement back in Feb, share an updated roadmap through the beginning of summer, and then talk at a higher level about our longer-term projects that extend beyond June. 2 bosses a year? The content model Q&A. In our February studio update, we outlined some changes we're making in our development approach that allow us to deliver new content, features, and core gameplay updates more consistently. It was a lot of information to take in, and understandably there are some lingering questions from the community about the changes. We've been keeping a close eye on the discussion, and below we've compiled responses to some of the more prominent community questions. I've been lost in the tangled depths for the last 2 months with no cell phone service, and I missed the news. What's the TLDR? I feel like this is a personal jab at this point. I feel like this is personal. We're changing how we deliver updates to the game so that we can adopt a more consistent release schedule, minimize content droughts, and increase our support for the core game. Rather than releasing an expansion every 2 to 4 years with 1 to 2 seasons of Living World in between, we'll be releasing smaller expansions with a lower price much more frequently. Well, actions speak louder than words. In this model, the first release in an expansion cycle will introduce a new story arc and setting, 2 new open world maps, 2 strike missions, woo, new gameplay and combat features, new masteries and new rewards. In the following quarterly updates, we'll add story chapters, an additional open world map, challenge modes for the strike missions, a new fractal dungeon. What's been the wait on the fractal dungeons? They've been a long time, right? And a challenge mode. New rewards, additions to the new systems introduced in that expansion, and depending on the release plan for that expansion, new gameplay and combat features. And depending on the release plan alongside these expansion content updates, we're beefing up our support of the core game so we can iterate and improve on Guild Wars 2 even while releasing new expansion content on a more consistent schedule. Once that expansion's year-long cycle is complete, the next expansion will be just around the corner. This strikes me very reminiscent of what Blizzard said during Wars of Draenor, and they just couldn't do it. They just couldn't do it. I really hope. I have seen this post before. You can read a more detailed overview of the change in the February studio update. Question. Do smaller expansions mean that there are fewer developers working on Guild Wars 2? No, quite the contrary. In fact, thanks to the growth of Guild Wars 2 saw in 2022, we're increasing the size of the dev team, largely in content and systems design. Recently, a number of really high-skilled developers have left Activision Blizzard King due to issues over in that company. We've hired a bunch of new folks since January, and we'll be opening additional roles throughout the year. Excellent. 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 Interesting how that works. How does this shift result in more support for the... It's just surprising that recently a lot of devs from MMO studios seem to have become available. Weird. Very weird. Let's start by defining the core game. Core is typically viewed as synonymous with the base Guild Wars 2 experience. Anything that doesn't require an expansion, system-wise, that's a huge chunk of the game. Core, Tyrion, the story up to level 80. They're going to change the story. Up to level 80. Professions, world vs. world, PvP, dungeons, fractals, etc. The list goes on. In the context of supporting the live game and our new development strategy, Core also encapsulates the long list of content and features that have been added to the game over the past decade. When we introduce features to Guild Wars 2, we want those new tools to be relevant across the entire game, past, present, and future. Because the systems introduced in expansions like Heart of Thorns, Path of Fire, and End of Dragons are so ubiquitous and central to the player experience, they deserve iteration just as much as any true core system. Yes, this is exactly what Warframe just realized. In fact, our Warframe video focuses entirely on this. Entirely on what they're saying here. And a lot of games could learn from this. You have to go back. You have to go back and show people the modern era. Over the past decade, our development strategy has skewed more towards addition rather than iteration. That's not a bad thing by default, but every development strategy has trade-offs, different pros and cons. In this case, it meant that the core game took a back seat. Meanwhile, the number of features slowly crept upward without a plan or designated resources to maintain them. Yeah. What do I mean by that? It really is the core function of our next YouTube video that I filmed yesterday. But a lot of games that are now hitting the 10-year and 10-year plus mark have constantly been like adding to the game. Now that's really, really good for your entrenched players, your veteran players, and returning players who are au fait with the game. They just get brand new stuff. But one of the things we've definitely found with Project MMO, and over the last couple of years playing EVE and Warframe example, is a new player. Path of Exile is a really good example of this. A new player who everything is new to them is just overwhelmed and lost. Because, let's say a new expansion's coming for your MMO. One, you already have a baseline of how that game works. Its foundation and the system's already in that game. And you probably watch release trailers, feature stuff, interviews, streams where they're discussing this stuff. And in that way, you already have an established knowledge of what the expansion's systems and features are going to be before the game even comes out. And you have a relatively comfortable time blending into that environment because you're building off a core foundation of knowledge. And you've already watched all the research and development process of this new feature as it goes along. A new player does not have any of that at all. And there's a lot of things that veteran players take for granted that just make no sense to a new player. Like, the game doesn't actually teach you that, but you found out about it through community, through YouTube videos, through streams. You found out about it in loads of different ways and playing with established players that a new player just has no chance of. So if you ignore what your base game does for too long, it doesn't represent what the game actually is. So that was one of the things Warframe did with the Duviri Paradox, is they have modern up-to-date cutscenes, because if you made a cutscene in 2013, the probability is your cutscene technology and resources are significantly different in 2023, and you're producing way higher quality stuff now than you were 10 years ago. And so when a player starts a new game and you haven't updated your base game, we're good, right? It says we're fine. We're good. That player's like, oh, this game is old. It looks old. It feels old. It feels like a 2013 game, right? That's a really bad approach because that's not what your company is producing now. Same with the gameplay. Added a ton of stuff in, and new players don't know it exists in the first place, and your base game might be pretty weak. That happens a lot. When your MMO launches, it's probably pretty weak compared to what you're adding to it later on after you've had player feedback and added a load of stuff in. So it's really important that these games that have got this longevity go back and constantly reinvigorate the base game to represent their modern standards. Because otherwise, you're kind of just hoping people like the base game and will eventually find the new stuff. You're kind of just hoping that happens rather than showing them what you're capable of now. It's a really important thing that I think more and more games are doing. Path of Exile is a big one. Path of Exile has what? How many different leagues worth of content are in PoE now? Like 13? There's like Blight, Ritual, Abyss, Delirium. The list goes on, right? Heist, Expedition, Delve. It just goes on and on and on. Now, if you've played PoE for a long time, as each of these features was introduced on top of the previous ones, then you already had the time to understand that one system, learn it, play with it, mess around with it, and then you got another one. That's a good thing. But a new player goes in, and I'm still in this boat. Why should I do Blight? Especially if I don't particularly like it. So I've got to ignore that context. I don't particularly enjoy it. And then you find out later on, actually, that does things that are really kind of important because it was a good feature that they brought in and kept in the game. And the same with Abyss, the same with Metamorph and all these kind of things. And it's very overwhelming because you're like, there's so many choices here. I don't know what each of them is for, or whether they're good or bad, or whether I need them. And you tend to, as a new player, will be not doing the stuff that you don't particularly enjoy. Like, Expedition is really, really, really good for resources. Like, exceptionally good. But it's also slow. It's also slow, and it can be a little tedious. And you can also, if you're not really clear on what you're doing, you can make mobs that you can't kill, which is a real problem. That's a real fucking problem that I ran into several times, right? Is that you could just you could drop 4 explosives and build mobs that just can't die. And you're like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to do now? Nothing. You've fucked. You've bricked your map. Good job. Like, you're completely fucked. And then you probably won't touch it again, right? You probably leave it alone. And don't find out that actually it's one of the most intense. I did it with Heist, actually. I did not like Heist in PoE, but this league I focused on Heist and actually found it very enjoyable. And also it made me insane amounts of money which was really strange. It made me... I didn't realize how good it was, but it took 2 leagues for me to even bother with Heist to see what that system is, and it's good. Whereas I initially preferred Delve because it's very simple. Pick what you want, kill all the mobs, get what you want, move to the next place. Nice and simple. It was good stuff. So I'm really glad that Guild Wars 2 is doing this as well. This is fantastic. More than ever, we're confident in our future and we're committed to long-term support for this community. This is why we're taking on projects that will keep the game healthy in the long run, like refactoring large swathes of old code, optimizing our development tools, future-proofing World vs. World with the World Restructuring System, and updating our engine. Improving existing systems is also a key part of our strategy for Guild Wars 2, and by rescoping and redefining our future expansions, we were able to get started on core game improvements right after the release of End of Dragons. In a little over a year, those teams delivered a significant list of changes, all while Expansion 4 has been in development. The return of Living World Season 1, the Steam launch, updated visuals and mechanics for multiple world bosses, emboldened mode for raids, reworked fractal mistlock instabilities, etc, etc. High contrast. These are the things that are already in. Despite that progress, there is still much left to do. We take a lot of pride in our work and making our players happy, and there's a nearly infinite list of things we'd like to do. However, both time and development resources are finite. Yep, if you've ever heard a developer talk about constraints, that's what they're lamenting. Yep, I did that recently with Mr. Ian. So we must be very intentional with where we focus our efforts. For now, we're addressing systems that will positively impact as many players as possible. As time goes on, we hope to dig into more niche areas of the game. That's a logical approach. The problem with gamers, though, is if you love that niche area and it's not getting attention, you think the devs hate you. That's the problem with gamers, is they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck. And I'm part of this problem as well. I'm an absolute part of this problem. If your niche area is not getting the attention, such as the thing that 90% of players are doing and 5% of players are doing, then you generally think the devs hate you and they're ignoring you and they just, like, fucking detest your existence. Question. The February studio update said that future expansions would include combat features and didn't mention elite specializations at all. What does that mean? In the current design and implementation of elite specs, we feel that with every new expansion there's been increasingly limited design space left to add new and differentiated roles for each profession. In other words, most of the playstyles that we'd like to see supported for each profession already exist or should exist within their existing elite spec options. With our next expansion, our goal is to further augment the combat options for each profession by adding new tools to their arsenal, and by lifting constraints that will unlock an unprecedented number of playstyle customization options. While keeping the feel of Guild Wars 2 combat true to its origins, theory crafters are going to be very busy. Yeah, I haven't delved into the class stuff too much to the annoyance of some people. I got told yesterday people were really pissed that I didn't know about every legend that I have on my spec. There's just a lot. Right? Just a lot, and you've got to kind of focus into what you know. I don't want to spend too many streams, like, dicking around with my spec over and over again. Not right now, when there's so much to consume elsewhere. What does the What Lies Beneath quarterly release differ from future expansions' quarterly releases? Beginning with the 4th expansion, there will be new content updates every 3 to 4 months. Alright. Okay. For context, there was no new Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons story content released between February 2022 and February 2023. Okay. I really don't like posts like this. Like, get a specific date, period. And there's always problems behind the scenes. There's things that get delayed. Unless it's already made. And then you end up in the Blizzard cycle, where they were making content 2 years early, and they couldn't respond to feedback. Right? Gotta be really careful with this. Very careful with this. A roadmap saying when things are coming generally is a good idea, but keep it vague. Putting a time constraint on yourself can lead to all sorts of stuff. I mean, we're guilty of it here too. It's like, you know, when we say like PreachCon's going to be around this month and stuff like that, and if it's not there, people get really pissed. Yeah, a roadmap should just be a guideline. Just keep it vague. Delaying new content development until a month or 2 later. Okay. Comparatively, the 4th expansion hasn't even been officially revealed yet, and we're already making headway on its quarterly release content. This is one of the biggest reasons we're excited about this transition. Additionally, as we laid out earlier in this blog, the 4th expansion's quarterly releases will be augmented by other types of content and features that aren't included in the Guild Wars 2 End of Dragons quarterly releases. Okay. Here's a more detailed look at what's to come over the next 2 months. End of Dragons update, so we probably won't be at End of Dragons, maybe? We could be. What lies within? Fractal Dungeon and Challenge Mode is coming in spring. Dragon Bash Festival. Skills and balance updates, visual effects filtering feature, and World vs. World reward updates. Ooh, okay. Tomorrow's update will include profession balance changes aimed at addressing outstanding balance issues and bring up some underperforming elite specs, like Reaper. We're keeping this update on the lighter side with just over 100 changes in total, so the team can focus on delivering a larger balance update on June 27th. If you missed the balance update preview that was posted on April 21st, you can check it out here. The new End of Dragons content. The next update for End of Dragons arrives in May 23rd, concluding the story at the beginning of this year. I should probably not read this. Skip. June 6th. The annual celebration of our penchant for dragon slaying, the Dragon Bash Festival, returns to Tyria on June 6th. The June 6th release will also introduce a new option in the settings menu. Hide ally visual effects. That will give you control over whether visual effects are shown for allied players, pets, and minions. While the default setting hides no visual effects, just as it works now, you will now be able to choose from 3 options to hide visual effects for all allied players, hide them for allied players who aren't in your squad, or hide them for allied players who aren't in your party. Some high-impact allied visual effects that convey important information in combat, such as combo fields, cannot be hidden. Good. This is very good. Can we turn post-processing on? Is that allowed? No, this option only applies to allied players, so you won't be surprised by any invisible attacks from enemy players or creatures. As part of our focus on core game modes, we'll be releasing another round of World v World improvements, including the addition of new infusion and weapon set and new ways to spend your skirmish claim ticket, so I haven't delved into that yet, so we'll see. The Cantha-themed Fractal Dungeon and Profession Balance update. New Fractals of the Mist content is just around the corner, but you're going to need to wait a little bit longer to hear the juicy details. However, we did want to share a quick note on how we're approaching its design. When we started development on the new Fractal, we took some time to review the feedback from our last Fractal, Sunqua Peak. I think I've done that one on the easy mode, right? Because I didn't have any of the agony resistance yet. I think Shalana took us to this one. One of the main themes in the feedback was that players prefer less waiting around and more action, especially when you're replaying the instance often. One of our goals for this upcoming release is to deliver a Fractal with a tighter gameplay experience while still providing story content as Fractals do. The challenge mode is scheduled for the following updates so we can tune the encounter and address any bugs stemming from the normal version. As for the balance update, here's what we're looking to address. Improve the feelings of moment-to-moment gameplay from any boon support... Oh, coming! There's a man at the door. How rude. Okay. Where were we? Introduce alternate playstyles for some specs, including quickness support and Deadeye and damage builds for Druid and Tempest. Tuning some underutilized weapons and solidifying their roles in the professions. Look at further defining Ranger Sword as mobile power damage. Remove additional skill type specific recharge reduction traits and rolling the reduction into baseline skills where it makes sense to do so. The goal of these changes is to give players more interesting trait options to choose from. Okay. Long range. Pow! Hearing what's coming through the end of June is cool and all, but what else is there, you ask? Here's a high-level look at some of our active initiatives in the Guild Wars 2 team. The core game update. After the Allied visual effect filtering feature releases in June, the team primarily responsible for core game updates will be turning their attention towards completing their most ambitious project yet, a rework of an existing core game reward system. Intriguing, right? The feature is still many months away from shipping, and we're not ready to talk about it quite yet. We wanted to let you know that they'll be heads down on this for a while. Just want to make sure you assume they've been kidnapped by Skrit or something. Filthy rats! In the meantime, we'll be keeping an eye on feedback regarding the Mega Server map queue and the Allied visual effect features. We'll make it so kind of vague. Okay. Hopefully they're going to reduce the amount of fucking loot boxes and shit you get at the start of the game. It's very overwhelming. Infrastructure improvements. As of April 18th, DirectX 9 is no longer an option in the menu, meaning the Guild Wars 2 is now DirectX 11 only. What's next for the engine programming team? Our near-term focus is to knock out any new bugs and crashes related to the upgrade, finish updating our art production pipeline, and finally begin the work of removing all DX9 code from the engine. Removing this code is the last remaining step that is preventing us from moving on to the most exciting part of this initiative, which is digging into the various technology upgrades that DirectX 11 enables for Guild Wars 2. We're going to need some time to look into the feasibility of each once we finish removing the guts of DirectX 9, so we don't have too many details to share yet. At a high level, our investigation will focus on two areas: performance optimizations and graphics upgrades. While there are some global graphical upgrades we'll be exploring, most of the improvements will come in the form of new tools and functionality that artists can leverage for future content. The April 18th update will also include an upgrade to Chromium Embedded Framework, the WebUI SDK that powers many of the interfaces in the game and sets us up for long-term improvements. Aside from better load times and responsiveness from the menus that leverage the tech, most of the improvements here are invisible to the player. Our engine programming team published a blog that covers it there. World vs. World I'll skip for now. Expansion 4 I don't really want to know about either. Yeah, it'd be nice. This is nice to see. I love that they're going back and taking a look at their core game. For sure. Hopefully new players won't get stuck like I did in their expansion and not know what the fuck to do. Oh shit, I had to restart it. Like, I don't know if I didn't have the same MMO experience that I have now. Would I have gone back and changed things? I'm skipping the World vs. World stuff because I haven't delved into it enough yet. And I want to mess around and do some learning in there myself before we do that. So we'll come back to it later on. I think it's when they change core, they break everything else. It can happen, you know. It can happen. Changing a mob type in a random area can suddenly make something else not work later on. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to learn what our team is up to. We're excited at all the things lining up for the game this year, and we're glad to be sharing this journey with you. I was kind of happy with no content for a while. But apparently it's coming anyway. Okay. I mean, you can wait for me, right?